Can treason be justified? Is there an excuse for cheating? I think not. Even if people are in a very dangerous situation, it does not give them the right to cheat on their partner. My wife had a great opportunity for cheating, and she took advantage of it without the slightest remorse. I spent the day with my beautiful woman and loving wife. We made love. And thus commenced our Friday. Both of us had taken the day off, and Jeanette had also secured Monday off. With my vacation days running low, we planned to return Sunday night to ensure I could make it to work on Monday. Our destination was the mountains for a skiing weekend. Jeanette's close friend, Tatiana, along with her husband, Steve, had arranged to share a cabin with us, located about 5 miles from the ski resort. This was a repeat of the trip we took with them a year ago. Another couple was scheduled to join us on Saturday. Tatiana served as Jeanette's maid of honor, and vice versa, as their weddings were just a month apart. Steve, a typical high school jock without much potential beyond that, often reminisced about his glory days, primarily centered around his athletic achievements, while Jeanette seemed captivated by his recounts, probably due to her own history in high school sports. Tatiana often appeared disinterested, gazing into the distance. Although I had my share of high school sports involvement, serving as the starting point guard on the junior varsity team for 3 consecutive years, I focused on college prep classes in my senior year since seniors weren't allowed to play on the junior varsity team. Despite Steve holding a college degree, I wouldn't consider hiring him. Interestingly, all 4 of us hold college degrees. I'm only about 10 credit hours away from completing my master's, but I still have to tackle my thesis, which might cause some delays. My mentor suggests aiming for around 60 pages for the thesis, and while I've outlined it, I anticipate it will challenge my abilities, as it should. Obtaining a master's degree holds significance for potential employers. Jeanette instructed, "Make sure to remove your golf club so we have space for groceries." "Yes, ma'am. Anything else, ma'am?" "Cute. Just get it done." Heading to the garage, as the door lifted, I noticed light flickering beneath my car. Since I'd had an oil change recently, I decided to inspect. Unfurling a tarp, I knelt down to find a few drops under the oil pan. Confirming it was oil with a touch, I realized ensuring the oil drain plug was tight was evidently more challenging than I'd assumed. Sliding out from under the car, I fetched my socket set and tightened the bolt by half a rotation. It was now secure. Oh no, I forgot a paper shop towel. Another trip later, I resolved the issue. I replaced the tarp and then entered to clean my hands. "Are you prepared to leave?" "Almost. I need to wash my hands first." "What happened?" "They forgot to properly tighten the oil pan bolt again. They may be inexpensive, but you need to oversee their work." "Hurry or we'll be tardy." "Yes, sir." That response earned me a stern glare, accompanied by tightly pressed lips. We encountered Tatiana and Steve at the grocery store close to the cabin, though calling it near was a stretch given it was 10 miles away. You'd think we were stocking up for a month with the 2 overflowing shopping carts packed with everything imaginable. As I popped the trunk, I noticed my golf clubs inside. "Damn it, Dale. I told you to remove those," I grumbled. "They must have snuck back in when I wasn't paying attention," Dale replied. His excuse earned him another disapproving glare from me. The back seat was crammed with sleeping bags and suitcases, alongside a jumble of groceries. Only a few bags could fit in the trunk. Jeanette remained quiet during the final stretch to the cabin. Upon arriving at the cabin, we began unloading the cars. I started with our back seat, and after numerous trips, Tatiana and I were on our way back to the cars. We passed Jeanette and Steve carrying armfuls of stuff. "Looks like you've got the last of it. We'll meet you inside," Tatiana said. She grabbed the final bag of groceries from her car, and as I heard the slam of her trunk, I remembered a few items had tried to escape earlier. Pausing to retrieve them, I found myself slightly behind Tatiana as we made our way back to my car. My trunk was open with just 2 bags remaining. In the distance, we were startled by a powerful explosion. During this season, particularly following a sequence of snow and sleet, the Highway Department conducts avalanche control measures, Typically, this involves closing off highways and strategically placing explosives to initiate controlled avalanches. The highway department isn't exactly renowned for attracting the top graduates. Tatiana and I gazed up at the mountain and witnessed the beginning of a small avalanche. I had witnessed this phenomenon twice before. They usually lasted about 10 seconds before halting. However, this time was different. What initially started as a 20-foot wide event had now expanded to several hundred feet. The sound of its approach was unmistakable, akin to an oncoming train. "Damn, it's coming our way. Get in the car, hurry!" With a slam of the trunk, I leaped into the driver's seat while Tatiana swiftly occupied the passenger side. The approaching roar was terrifying. Both of us watched in horror as the wall of snow advanced. "Brace yourselves for impact." I pressed my head against the steering wheel while Tatiana pulled her knees up and curled into a ball. The impact tossed my car around like a hockey puck on ice until we finally collided with something solid. Though it felt like minutes, it was probably only seconds. But the fear for my life was intense. Tatiana's screams echoed, reminiscent of a teenager on a roller coaster's first drop. My chest felt tight, my pulse racing, and my head throbbed. Amidst the darkness, I realized I was alive. "Are you okay, Tatiana?" "I think so. My head hurts a bit. I hit it hard on the dashboard. Feels like we're tilted." "I agree. Your side seems higher." I located the dome light switch and turned it on. "Voila! Light." Tatiana sounded worried. "You're bleeding above your right eye. Check me." Nice hair, lovely shape, cute smile. What exactly am I checking?" Giggling, she replied, "Guess I'm not bleeding." "Well, not in the areas I can see," I teased, winking. Tatiana blushed, and we sat quietly for a few moments. I attempted to unlock my door, but we were firmly trapped. A sizable shadowy patch, devoid of snow, loomed near the front right wheel. Despite the poor lighting, it seemed that several large trees had formed a makeshift shelter above us. If we could access that opening, we might have enough oxygen to sustain us for a few days. We'd need to ensure we ran a fan to circulate the carbon dioxide. It's not the lack of oxygen that proves fatal, but rather the buildup of CO2 reaching dangerous levels. "Did you happen to bring that last bag of groceries?" Tatiana shook her head, then inquired, "Do you think Steve and Jeanette made it?" "I'm not sure. I've never witnessed how cabins withstand avalanches of this magnitude." My heart sank. What if Jeanette hadn't survived? Tears welled up in my eyes, and I brushed them away. Glancing at Tatiana, I noticed she was doing the same. Tatiana reflected, "I suppose we haven't fully survived either, have we?" "Not until we're breathing in some of that sun-warmed air. I wonder if anyone will even realize we're buried." I tried the horn. It worked. At least we have a means of signaling for help. We can honk every hour or so, or whenever we hear activity. After an hour of almost complete silence, Tatiana broke the quiet with a solemn declaration. "I don't want to die." Agreed. It hadn't occurred to me that today might be my last. Even without phone service, I'm going to jot down some texts expressing my love to those who matter. What a brilliant idea. If only I had my phone with me, I'd do the same. You can use mine. I typed for about 10 minutes before being overwhelmed by emotions. Passing the phone to Tatiana, she underwent the same wave of feelings. For the next 2 hours, we exchanged the phone, each composing messages from beyond the grave to our loved ones. We hadn't heard anything. The battery appeared to be holding up fine, but now we were conserving energy by turning off the dome light when we stopped. "I'm starting to feel a bit cold," Jeanette fretted. "I wish we'd emptied the trunk earlier. The sleeping bags would still be accessible in the back seat." "Oh, I have my golf clubs in the trunk. There's a way to access it by folding down the back seats. I have my winter gloves and rain gear. I believe there are windbreakers, too." Moving into the back seat, I located the release latch, which still functioned. Using my cell phone as a light source, I peeked into the trunk. After a minute, I emerged with gloves, hats, coats, and a pair of rain pants. I also retrieved the last 2 bags of groceries. Celery sticks, frozen cauliflower, and potato chips were the highlights. At least we wouldn't go hungry. Recalling that I had a couple of energy drinks stashed in the golf bag, I went back to the trunk. Upon resurfacing, I couldn't stifle a laugh at the sight of Tatiana decked out in golf attire. Feeling warmer? Definitely, this is a lifesaver. Want a celery stick? If it's no trouble. For you, I'll make an exception. I sprawled out in the back seat and donned the rest of the golf gear. Tatiana reclined the passenger seat as far back as possible. I wish we had a blanket, Tatiana mentioned. Hey, I've got those small towels I use for cleaning my clubs. We can use them to cover our faces. I returned from the trunk with both of my golf towels. What if we pull up the floor mats? It might not be much, but it could help. And so we proceeded. Each of us took a blanket from the front and one from the back. We wrapped them around ourselves, then placed the small towels over our faces. It made a significant difference. We shut our eyes and rested. Upon awakening, I realized I had indulged in a 2-hour nap. Tatiana was still softly snoring, a way women often describe their own snoring. Instead of waking her abruptly by honking the horn, I lay there contemplating my life and the current situation. I don't want to meet my end here. Would they discover us before the spring thaw? Would we perish just an hour before they located us? One's own mind can be a merciless torturer. My mother will be devastated. I pray Jeanette made it through. Tatiana startled awake and let out a scream. It's all right, Tatiana. I'm right here. She sobbed. I had a horrible dream, Dale. I saw our skeletons in the car. I don't want to die. Without hesitation, Tatiana climbed into the back seat. Hold me. Her warmth was comforting, and I won't deny it. We remained in that embrace for 15 minutes before she returned to the front seats. What's the time? It's just past 7 p.m. The sun has set nearly 2 hours ago. That's why it's getting colder. Are we at risk of starving, freezing, or running out of oxygen? I think we're fine on everything except freezing. I could use some water. As I turned the key, I realized the driver's side window was jammed. However, both passenger side windows opened a few inches. After confirming they could close again, I lowered them once more. We took advantage of this to gather some snow for water. With some effort, Tatiana managed to puncture through the ice. That sorted our oxygen supply. After running the fan for 10 minutes, I closed the windows. With our horn intermittently sounding, I could only hope someone in the distance was curious about the noise. Tatiana voiced what was on my mind. I need to use the restroom. Me too. Any ideas? It seems like the car is leaning towards the left front tire. I'll take the driver's seat. Don't peek, you creep. Wait, let me grab my camera and film. You'll get a thrashing if you do. The car was filled with the sounds and smells of urine as Tatiana finished and returned to the passenger seat. I awkwardly settled into the driver's seat. Could you lend a hand here? Tatiana chuckled in response, asking, Where's the knife? Forget it. I think I can manage. Feel free to gape in amazement, I replied. Turning her gaze away, she said, Just give me a heads up when you're finished. Can we open the window again? I'm still thirsty. I could use another mouthful of snow. After relieving myself and starting the car, I rolled down the windows and turned on the fan since the window was open. Following expressing our distressing situation, we attempted to settle down for the night. 30 minutes of lying still passed before Tatiana queried, Can we lie together? Will you behave yourself? Do you want me to? Chuckling, I replied, What I desire and what I'm inevitably going to do at this juncture are quite disparate. I suggest you spoon me. I'd rather not be accused of prodding you all night. Tatiana then maneuvered into the back seat, positioned herself against the seatback and drew me close. Press against me firmly. I'm freezing. After covering ourselves with floor mats, Tatiana extended her right arm over my chest, pulling me nearer. Her body heat was incredibly comforting. I tensed, wary of any lower movements that might betray my discomfort. Eventually, sleep enveloped us beneath golf towels. I lost track of how long we'd been asleep, but Tatiana nudged me aside, saying, I need to use the restroom. Shifting position, I observed Tatiana settling into the driver's seat. The scent and sounds of urine once again filled the car. Glancing at my watch, I noted it was nearly 5 a.m. Tatiana resumed our embrace, and neither of us felt particularly tired. What will you do if Jeanette is no longer with us? I'm not sure what you mean. Will you stay put or relocate? I'll stay. Either way, I'm committed to completing my master's here. And you? What if Steve is gone? I'd probably return to my parents' house until I've come to terms with it. How much longer before they liken us to the Donner Party? I chuckled, estimating. Around a week. We've got plenty of water, and the groceries should hold out for another 3 or 4 days. It's tough to gauge our oxygen levels. Do you think someone is searching for us? Given that it was the highway department, I'd say yes. Speaking of which, let me give the horn another try. I nestled closer to Tatiana, feeling her hand slip beneath my shirt. The warmth of skin against skin was comforting. We chatted aimlessly for a couple of hours, munching on potato chips and finishing off the celery. Eventually, we settled in and soon drifted off to sleep. As I woke up, I remained still, listening to Tatiana's soft purring. Glancing at my watch, I saw it was nearing 5 p.m. Suddenly, I heard a faint, dull thud. "Tatiana, wake up! I heard something," I exclaimed. I began sounding the horn in the SOS pattern. 3 short honks, 3 long honks, and 3 short honks. Tatiana softly pleaded, "Please, please, please." We both fell silent for a moment, until another thump broke the quiet. I repeated the SOS sequence. Then, suddenly, their probing pole made contact with my car. I relentlessly sounded the horn until the pole struck the car again. Relief washed over us. We were going to be rescued. Soon, several poles were tapping the car, and I acknowledged each one with a honk. Despite knowing help was on the way, I couldn't shake the growing anxiety as time passed. What was taking so long? Tatiana huddled close to me as I leaned over the driver's seat. Periodically, another probe would thud against the car. Then voices broke through the tension. "Almost there, hang in there." The clang of metal against metal had never been so satisfying. I pressed down on the horn once more. A miner's headlamp pierced through the snowfall. A seasoned gentleman, bundled up tightly, flashed us a grin. He swept away the snow obstructing the driver's door. I attempted to push it open, but the mound of snow remained too thick. After a couple more minutes of digging, I felt the door budging. The rhythmic sound of his shovel against the door preceded my door swinging open about 6 inches. "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." "It was nothing," the man replied. With his assistance and then Tatiana's, we emerged into the darkness. Around us, about 20 individuals with miner's lamps illuminated the scene. They enveloped us in blankets, offered a bottle of water, and then secured us onto a sled. "Is the cabin still intact?" "What cabin?" My heart sank. "We were staying at 24269 Pine Way. There are 2 people there." He relayed my information over his radio. After some discussion, he approached us again. "We haven't located that cabin. It's too dark now, but we'll resume the search in the morning. Let's get the 2 of you to the hospital. You were buried under almost 15 feet of snow. We heard your car horn earlier this afternoon, which is why we're working through the night. Ready?" Tatiana nestled close to me, encircling my waist with both hands, as we were escorted back to the emergency vehicles. After a warm journey, we found ourselves inside the emergency room, drawing considerable notice. I required 2 stitches for the gash above my right eyebrow, which turned out to be the extent of our injuries. We were adequately hydrated, and there were no indications that hypothermia had become severe. Nevertheless, we opted to spend the night in the hospital, replenishing fluids and gradually restoring our body temperature to its usual levels. In the morning, Tatiana was released first, yet she waited for me. I spoke with the emergency responders. They located the cabin and discovered signs of life. My heart leaped with joy. I grabbed Tatiana and spun her around, exclaiming, "Yes!" After putting her down, she leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being such a gentleman. Your composure was remarkable. I'm not sure I would have managed alone." I know it would have been different with Steve. He would have panicked. So, thank you again. You're welcome, and thank you too. Your calmness helped me stay focused. Who's leading the rescue operation? I found the person in charge downstairs in the cafeteria. It seems they've established a command center there. Let's go then. The following 2 hours were agonizing. No updates came from the search team. It was around 12:30 when we finally received news. The person in charge announced, "There are 2 survivors. We need heavy equipment to help, as the cabin walls have collapsed." They must have been fortunate to find a spot that wasn't completely destroyed. Do you have any idea when you'll reach them? It's too early to say. I felt relieved. They were both alive. Please avoid causing any further harm with the bulldozers. Then came the waiting. A few hours later, we received an update. They're both out safely. They should arrive here within 30 minutes. Tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you. Tatiana and I embraced once more. I quickly drained my phone's battery, informing all our relatives about what had happened. No one had suspected a thing. They all knew we were skiing and hadn't connected the avalanche to our trip. Now they were all in a panic. I encountered Jeanette's stretcher, and Tatiana did the same with Steve. Both reunions were filled with tears. It wasn't until after dinner that we were permitted to visit them in their rooms. For the initial 10 minutes, we clung to each other, whispering, "I love you." "Hey, sweetheart, how was your weekend?" "We had a lot of snow. Yours?" Come to think of it, yes, there were a few flakes. Her laughter was like music to my ears. Her kisses were warm, and her hugs were heavenly. Tatiana and I barely made it into my car before it hit. How did you 2 survive? Pure luck. We heard a loud noise and then suddenly chaos. We had just put things down in the kitchen when it happened. I thought it was the end, but when the noise stopped, I realized we were still alive. It was completely dark, and I could hear Steve groaning. We had barely 3 feet of space. We were trapped in an area about 10 by 20. That's incredibly fortunate. Did you have any food or blankets? A few apples and a small rug. I thought we might freeze or starve to death. All we had were the parkas we were wearing and that rug. Any injuries? I've got lots of small cuts and scratches. Steve badly twisted his foot. How long are they keeping you? At least overnight. Our body temperatures dropped dangerously low. One nurse mentioned she didn't think we would have survived another night. I embraced and kissed Jeanette, but she wanted visitors to leave. Get a good night's rest. I'll arrange for a ride home and pick up your car. I'll also bring you fresh clothes. Jeanette initially nodded, then anxiously urged, Dale, just leave them. I don't want a reminder of this. I'll discard them. She reached for the bag I was holding. Seriously, Jeanette, it's no trouble. You won't even remember these were the clothes you wore. They're practically new. I've got it. Dale, just give them to me, please. Try to get some sleep. I'll see you in the morning. Dale, give me the damn bag. Jeanette, you're all worked up. Get some rest. I'll see you in the morning. I felt like she might have charged at me if she could get up. Strange. I assumed that if I was being escorted out, Tatiana would be too, so I waited for her. As expected, the elevator brought her down to the lobby. How's he? A complete wimp. It's like he can't handle anything unexpected. And Jeanette? Seems all right, I suppose. She went into panic mode when I mentioned taking her clothes home. She just wanted to get rid of them, to erase any memory of what happened. People react differently, I guess. It's strange, though. It's almost like she didn't want me to see them. I agree, did you? Did I what? Leave the clothes? No, they're still in the bag. Can I have a look? Tatiana took a glance. Her expression changed instantly. Her eyes widened in shock. That jerk. They slept together. Look at her pants. They're still wet. This isn't just a one-time thing. I'm going to confront him. Tatiana let go of the bag and made her way towards the stairs, the door slamming shut behind her. I stood there, stunned. How could she act this way? It's like she wasn't even affected by what happened to her. Collapsing into the chair, my heart shattered and tears welled up in my eyes. Anger was consuming me. 10 minutes later, security brought Tatiana back to the lobby. One of the guards positioned himself about 10 feet away, cautioning her to behave or face expulsion. He said they thought they were going to die. He wouldn't tell me how many times. He said a few. We thought we were going to die, and we didn't. What the hell? I wanted to lash out. I couldn't recall ever feeling this furious before. After a moment of silence, tears began to stream down our cheeks. My phone vibrated, prompting me to check the notification. "I have an Uber ride arriving in 2 minutes. You can come to my place and I'll drive you home," the message read. "Okay," she replied quietly amidst tears. The next tour felt awkward as both of us were dealing with our own pain. When I pulled up to her house, Tatiana leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. "Stay strong, Dale," she said. "You too, Tatiana. Thanks for the enjoyable weekend," I replied. A smile briefly broke through her tears. One I'll always remember. The drive back home was filled with sadness, my emotions in turmoil. I swung between thoughts of anger, comfort, departure, forgiveness, and the lingering question, why? Sleep eluded me, and the morning routine felt robotic. What day was it again? My phone indicated Monday. Oh no, I had to be at work in 30 minutes. Grabbing some fast food on the way, I made a brief stop at the office. After explaining my weekend I was granted today and tomorrow off, I headed back home. Browsing through Jeanette's wardrobe, I selected some comfortable clothes and suitable underwear. But then, anger consumed me. I cursed under my breath and resumed my search. I remembered seeing her wear a provocative costume last Halloween. I located it along with a delicate thong. As I grabbed her high heels, I muttered to myself, "She can wear these back." Since her dresser was open, I decided to relocate her belongings to the office bedroom. She could rearrange them later to accommodate the sleeper sofa. Returning to our bedroom, I gathered her toiletries and disposed of them in the trash can, which I then placed among her clothes. It took me some time to gather the courage to step into Jeanette's room. Her parents and sister were showering her with attention, but Jeanette's eyes were swollen and teary, leaving me unsure of the reason. After exchanging hugs and kisses with the family, I locked eyes with Jeanette. "Morning," I said. Despite feeling a surge of anger, I opted for a gentle hug instead of expressing my frustration. "Is that all I get?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I nodded silently, and she understood that I knew something was wrong. "Are they letting you go today?" I inquired. "I believe so," she replied. "The IVs and heated blankets did wonders for me. Even though the food is terrible, I can't seem to get enough of it." I noticed Jeanette becoming uneasy under my gaze, unable to hold eye contact for more than a moment. "I'm going to grab some coffee. Does anyone else want anything?" I asked. "I'll join you, son," offered Fred, Jeanette's father. Once we entered the cafeteria, he met my gaze. "What's the situation, Dale? I expected you two to be all lovey-dovey after what you went through." "Fred, I'll just say things aren't great between us. Jeanette can explain her side." "Sounds rough." "It is. I'm not sure what to do." We carried a tray of coffee cups and donuts back to the room. Jeanette was wiping tears. After we finished, Fred gathered his group and left. Before Jeanette and I could talk, her doctor came in and said she could go home. Jeanette took the bag of clothes I brought and went to her bathroom. It didn't take her long. "Do you want me to wear this?" "Behave like a tramp, dress like a tramp." We agreed on no intimacy until Monday, but then again, we also made promises that were shattered by the avalanche. Her expression fell, and she sank into the bathroom, crying for 30 minutes. Jeanette emerged wearing the outfit. Her voice trembling, she asked, "Satisfied now?" "Not even close. Let's go." The nurse arrived with a wheelchair, her expression a mix of pure astonishment. I left to fetch the car and pulled up to the entrance. All eyes were on Jeanette as she emerged from the wheelchair and walked to the passenger door. I didn't bother to assist her. The drive was silent for about 5 minutes. "We thought we were going to die, Dale." "So did we, but we didn't mess up a storm." That brought tears again. More silence followed. What happens now? Your belongings are in the office bedroom. The rest of the journey was filled with the sound of her subdued sobs. As we pulled into our driveway, she managed to murmur, "I'm sorry." "So am I." After my car was wrecked, I initiated the process of involving my insurance company. I hailed a Lyft to take me to the rental car agency where I picked up a temporary vehicle. During the ride back, I realized I didn't want to be around Jeanette at the moment. I messaged her saying, "Don't wait up. I'll be home whenever." Her prompt reply urged me to return home, emphasizing the need for communication to resolve our issues. "It's too soon," I responded. I spent the evening at a sports bar, watching college basketball and NHL hockey. Apparently, betrayed husbands emit a certain aura. A few hours later, my waitress speculated whether I was recovering from marital infidelity. She cautioned me against attempting to drown my sorrows in alcohol. I agreed. Around 1:30 a.m., Jeanette was waiting for me when I stumbled in. "I was worried about you," she said. My intoxicated reply was something to the effect of, "I wasn't worried about you." Disregarding her attempts to embrace and kiss me, I shut my bedroom door and sank into the center of the bed. That's where I remained until my bladder demanded attention. It was almost 10 a.m. Jeanette had left a note saying she was at work and expressing her love for me. I couldn't linger in the house amidst the plethora of cherished memories, which only stoked my anger further. Getting dressed for the day, I arrived at work around noon and stayed until 9. "Are you coming home tonight?" "I can cook," Jeanette asked. "It's too soon," I replied. After grabbing a meal, I returned around 10 p.m. With work looming in the morning, I couldn't afford to be hungover. Jeanette was wrapped up in her sweats on the couch. For the first time since Monday, her eyes weren't swollen and red. "We need to talk. Please don't shut me out," she pleaded. "What's there to talk about? You thought you were going to die, so you tried to drown yourselves in sex," I retorted. "You don't understand." "What don't I understand?" Tatiana and I discussed the prospect of death at length. Our communication was verbal, not physical. We shared the same worries as you. Would we freeze to death? Would we starve? Would our skeletons be found in the spring when the snow melted? But unlike you, we wondered if each of you would survive. How were your concerns any different? Tears welled up once more. They weren't. We discussed you all. And then you concluded they're probably dead. Let's have sex. Dale, no, it wasn't like that. Then why? I'm not sure. I suppose I was weak and frightened. I'm not as resilient as you. Are you going to leave me? I don't want a divorce. I honestly don't know. I feel repulsed when I'm near you. The pain of betrayal is still too fresh. Can I at least get a hug? Opening my arms, Jeanette wasted no time in squeezing my ribs. Her tears flowed for several minutes before we released each other. "Good night, Jeanette. See you tomorrow." "Good night, Dale. I love you." This marked the first instance I encountered betrayal. If I had experienced it once or twice before, perhaps in high school or college, I might have understood that tomorrow still exists. At this moment, however, uncertainty clouded my perception. I struggled to comprehend how what was purported as love succumbed to mere lust. For the following weeks, we existed in a tense standoff. I found myself longing for Tatiana's phone number. Was she divorcing Steve? And if so, would she relocate? "Have you heard from Tatiana?" Not since she barged into my room on Monday morning. She made it clear I should never reach out to her again. She wasn't kind about it. Her words were direct and harsh. She commended you for your chivalry and called you her hero. She said you were aware. That's why I was in tears when you arrived. "Have you informed your parents?" Fred sensed something was amiss right away. "Not really. I'm hopeful we can overcome this. But given the current circumstances, it seems unlikely, doesn't it? I believed our passion burned brightly, but you extinguished it. I no longer feel cherished in your presence. Something within me has withered. Let's assess how the next month unfolds, and then I'll make a decision." Jeanette's tears shimmered in her eyes. My inner self was devoid of emotion. I felt empty. Another 4 weeks passed, and I remained emotionally numb in Jeanette's presence. "Jeanette, where do we stand?" Can you offer me one reason to stay together? Because you're giving up on us. I made a mistake that I'll always regret, but it wasn't intentional. It just happened. I don't buy it. Nothing happens by chance. It happened because you wanted it to. Jeanette was visibly frustrated. That's not true. For all I know, you and Tatiana could have something going on. Trying to remain composed, I replied, So this is the game you want to play? Fine. How long have you been seeing each other? I bet reuniting with Steve felt good, didn't it? Maybe it was your first time with Steve, but I wonder how many others there have been. Jeanette curled up into a ball, pulling her knees to her chest. Each accusation I made felt like a blow to her. I continued, Have you been using our bedroom or just staying in motels? Whatever you've been doing, you've managed to keep me in the dark. Well, are you satisfied now? I'm sorry, Dale, I shouldn't have said that. There's no one else. There never has been. It was a terrible mistake on my part, and it only happened when we were in a difficult situation. Can't we try to move past this? I can tell you one thing, Jeanette. You've just sealed our fate. I wanted a partner strong enough to resist temptation. Now I know you'll always see me as a cheater, though I am innocent. And I'll always have to wonder if you'll cheat again under different circumstances. I'm too young for a life like that. I'm filing for divorce. Oh no, please, Dale. I don't want to lose you. Jeanette, I have to move forward. The only feeling left for me now is pain. You couldn't have hurt me more deeply. I'll have my lawyer file for divorce. You'll be served here. There's no need to make this public. Jeanette's eyes were filled with tears, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry, Dale, I truly am. I won't fight it. What about our house? I think we should sell it. I don't want it, and I doubt you can afford it. With a choked-up voice, she responded, Okay. 2 days later, Jeanette received the legal papers at her residence. It seemed reasonable since there wasn't much to divide between us. I would be obligated to pay a small amount of alimony for 2 years. Because there were no disagreements, the divorce was finalized in less than 90 days. Jeanette made persistent attempts to persuade me to reconsider, but I remained firm, whether by choice or circumstance. I relocated shortly after initiating the divorce proceedings. As expected, since Jeanette couldn't afford the mortgage, the house was sold, and whatever little remained after expenses was divided equally. Initially, Jeanette moved back in with her parents. She relocated a few months later, but I am unaware of her new whereabouts. Thoughts of her only stir up feelings of anger and sadness. While the idea of retaliating against Steve was tempting, he wasn't worth it. If he's wise, he'll steer clear of me, as my stance on revenge could easily change. During the process of my divorce, I dedicated my nights and weekends to completing my master's degree. Despite the efforts of some close friends to set me up with potential partners, I found myself emotionally detached even after going on a few dates. The idea of initiating a new relationship felt daunting. Is this all there is to look forward to? As I walked up the aisle to receive my diploma, only my family was there to share in my achievement. It had been 5 months since the upheaval of the divorce. After attending several exclusive job fairs, I found myself with 2 highly lucrative job offers. Although I cherished my current job, it was clear they couldn't match the offers. They acknowledged this when I presented them with the offers. I took a job on the West Coast, close to Palo Alto. All my belongings fit nicely in my car. My new apartment wasn't any less lonely than the previous one, nor was it any better. I realized I needed to establish a personal life that involved relationships with women. Many evenings were spent in my apartment, often staring at the television, though it remained off most of the time. I found myself uncertain about my life's direction. On one such night, I recalled the numerous text messages I had drafted. Reading them brought warmth to my soul. Expressing love and appreciation to those dear to you felt empowering. It dawned on me that I should embrace the life of a single man. It almost felt like invading someone's privacy, reading through Tatiana's texts one by one. Her writing exhibited far more talent than mine. As I reached the one addressed to her mother, my heart began to race. Near the conclusion she wrote, I may not have married the man of my dreams, but at least I'll die in his arms. Jeanette is so lucky. I had a mission at hand, finding a way to contact Tatiana. Jeanette's phone number was no longer valid, and I decided it wouldn't be fair to try reaching out to her anyway. Recalling conversations with Tatiana during our wait for rescue, I recalled the city where her parents resided. Flipping through one of the photo albums I had, I stumbled upon our wedding pictures along with a fact sheet containing Tatiana's maiden name. Locating her parents didn't take much time, and I left a message with her mother to have Tatiana call me. When Tatiana didn't return my call promptly, my heartache resurfaced until the following week. Dale? Tatiana? Is that really you? How have you been? Oh, Dale, I'm so glad you called. I've missed you terribly. I've been doing well. What's new with you? Well, let's see. I finally completed my master's and landed a job on the West Coast. I've only been out here for a month. Is Jeanette with you? No, I just couldn't make it work. We've been divorced for a few months now. How about you? Still with Stevie? Nope. Same as you. We tried living together for a couple of months, but it was too much for me to handle. Oh, I'm overjoyed that you reached out. What prompted it? Last week, I was indulging in another round of self-pity when I stumbled upon those messages we exchanged back when we thought we were facing our demise. Reading them lifted my spirits. Wow, I completely forgot about those. Uh-oh. I suppose you read mine too. The man of your dreams, huh? I had no idea. She was my closest friend. Best friends never reveal such things. And why didn't you return my call promptly? I was on the road and my mom didn't want to disturb me with your message. She said you mentioned it wasn't urgent. Indeed, I did. So where do you call home now? Chicago. You mentioned the West Coast. Whereabouts? Palo Alto. We have an office in San Jose. How far is that from you? Palo Alto is roughly 20 miles from San Jose, where I usually fly in. Perhaps I could persuade my boss to let me visit that office. Or maybe I should consider a trip to the Windy City. Really, Dale, it would be great to see you. I have no plans for this weekend. I know exactly where O'Hare is, so I can pick you up. How about I look into flights for Friday night? Can you find me a place to stay? Sure thing, yeah, let me sort that out. Well, you know, I didn't want any issues with your partners. I'll handle them. Are you sure your partners will let you go without them? Like you, I'll handle them. If push comes to shove, I'll bring a few of them along with me. Brilliant suggestion. They can keep my boyfriends entertained while we enjoy a game of checkers. I admire your sense of humor, Tatiana. And yours is just one of the numerous things I adore about you, Dale. We continued our conversation for another 90 minutes. Hearing her voice again felt so comforting. It brought back a flood of fond memories. Despite my efforts, I couldn't help but think about Jeanette, but I pushed those thoughts aside. Friday morning, I arrived at work early and left around 11 a.m. Catching the 1:45 p.m. flight to Chicago, I touched down just before 8 p.m. Carrying only my carry-on, I texted Tatiana that I was on my way to the passenger pickup. Dale, over here. I lifted Tatiana and spun her around in a hug. She gave me the warmest kiss I'd had all year. So glad you could make it. Hungry? Yeah, I could eat. Take me to your favorite spot. We'll save that for later. Let's go. Do you want to drive? Not really. You take the wheel, just in case you need a break. Giggling, can you believe what we had to do? I've thought about that adventure so many times. It was something. After a satisfying meal at Texas Roadhouse, Tatiana drove back towards the highway. My heart skipped a beat when she pulled into the Holiday Inn parking lot. Usually, my out-of-town guests stay here, but I have other plans for you, she said, her eyes sparkling. Is this going to hurt? Only if you resist. I'm not taking no for an answer. Once we were inside Tatiana's apartment, she threw herself into my arms. Kiss me. We had a great time getting intimate. After tidying up, we drifted off to sleep beneath the covers. I awoke to the sound of the shower running as sunlight gently warmed my face. Tatiana stood drying her hair with a towel and greeted me with a smile. Good morning, my love. Did you enjoy last night? I did. Was it a dream or reality? Mine was a bit of both. You lasted much longer in my dreams. I playfully stuck my tongue out at her. Get out of bed. We have a busy day ahead of us. It was an amazing weekend. I must have experienced pleasure at least 10 times. We said goodbye on Sunday evening to Tatiana's tentative plans to visit San Jose in 2 weeks. After my turn to entertain had ended, I realized I was falling for Tatiana. The look on her face as we parted suggested she might feel the same. Midweek, I received confirmation. Evening, Tatiana. How's work this week? Great, Dale. That's actually why I called. There's an opening in the San Jose office. And? I'm qualified for it. And? I have feelings for you, but if you don't feel the same, I'll decline. Would it help if I said, I think I'm falling for you? Yes, so it helps, or are you still considering the job offer? Smart, Alec. Yes, I love you, and I'll take the job. We talked for another hour. I was to find an apartment near both our offices and the airport since Tatiana traveled often. Once she got the job, she packed her bags. It had only been 6 weeks since she called me back. Life moved fast, like an avalanche. We took our relationship at a leisurely pace, both of us grappling with deep-seated anxieties about commitment. Despite occasional arguments, we always made up with kisses and hugs before bedtime. I work closely with many young women, which bothers Tatiana. Conversely, she travels with men, which bothers me. During one of our discussions about this, 10 months into living together, we reached a mutual understanding. I recalled what I had told Jeanette earlier about wanting someone with resilience. I apologize, Tatiana. I've been unreasonable. If you can stay faithful even in the presence of your ideal man, then I shouldn't worry when you're away. While I may distrust the men, I ask that you avoid risky situations. Dale, hear me out. I've been unfairly jealous about your interactions with those women, but you've proven your trustworthiness, especially during the avalanche. I might not trust the women, but I trust you. We shared a silent moment before I knelt down. I don't have a ring or anything prepared, but would you like to spend your life with me? Pushing me onto my back, she leaned over me. Yes, I would. How do you plan to kill me slowly? A lifetime of love and torture, perhaps 50 or 60 years. Count me in. We had a small wedding ceremony in San Jose, followed by a honeymoon in a location far from snow. Since then, we haven't gone skiing again and have no interest in doing so. Our careers became our focus. But 8 years later, we welcomed Sarah into our family. She takes after her mother. 2 years after that, Maggie joined us, and she seems to resemble me more. Through social media, we discovered that Steve had remarried and had a child. We also found out that Jeanette had moved to Maryland and had 2 children. Neither Steve nor Jeanette have reached out to us, nor have we attempted to contact them. Those relationships are now buried in the past.